a small oversight of a very important demographic at your church is taking a huge toll on the next generation. We talk about how we can fix this on today's episode of the Must Increase podcast. Welcome to the Must Increase podcast, where our mission is to increase His name through your church. I'm your host, Luke Clayton, and I'm joined by our producer and my co-host, Bo Snyder. Bo, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely good to be here. Now, this episode title is Using Media in Your Children's Department.
Yep.
Now, this is something you kind of talked about in your little intro there. This is overlooked a lot, but it's one of the most key things that we could actually do for our kids, for our teenagers, for our youth department. So I'm excited about this. This is good.
Yeah, this is going to be a great episode. But before we get started, I do want to remind you to subscribe if you haven't yet. Wherever you're listening to podcasts, be sure to subscribe. So that way, each week, as we drop a new episode, it's going to be downloaded right to your device in the app that you're listening to podcasts. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. And so, when it comes to kids ministry, one of the things I think we all can agree that kids ministry is important.
Sure.
I don't think there's a church out there that doesn't realize the value of kids ministry. In fact, we encourage churches when we work with them, make sure to have kids ministry one of the main things that you emphasize when you market and advertise your church. Whenever you've got a big day, you always want to mention what you're doing for the kids. But one of the things I think that churches, Christians in general, have kind of forgotten about is how we can use media to reach kids. And of course, this podcast is for church leaders, but really what we're going to talk about today is a principle that will overlap and apply to parents and apply to just about anyone who has the responsibility of raising or training a child.
Well, think of it this way. Now, I think a lot of church leaders, they think of media, it's saturated our culture, which it has. So they might have the mentality, I don't need that much because kids, they have it everywhere. Well, if you take that approach, the only media they're going to be exposed to is of the world, of other sources that might not be excellent, as you could say.
Yeah.
So I think you have to take it from the perspective like, hey, it's okay for me to have good media for kids because they need to have good media coming from somewhere.
Yep.
I just can't ignore it because if I do, the only media they will be getting is from an outside source, which may not be the best thing.
Absolutely. And this is something we're really passionate about here at Must Increase. I mean, we spend a lot of energy and resources every year working on kids media, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But like you said, Bo, when it comes to media, a lot of times I think the approach, because I'm a parent, and I think I tend to take, my daughter's only not even 2 years old yet, and she enjoys watching a TV show here and there. And a lot of times the approach just naturally as a parent or a church leader or whatever relation you have as far as, being a guardian or someone responsible for bringing up a child, a lot of times you think, well, we got to get rid of that stuff. And I agree in that there needs to be limitations. And we could talk about that, but we're really not going to get on that too much because I think we all understand that, yes, we know there's developmental issues that happen when, a kid's just constantly on a screen. We get that. However, the phones, iPads, TV, movies, this media is not going away.
It's here to stay.
It is here to stay, and really in the past decade, we have seen it explode. The huge changes in the way media reaches people and really in the way we just communicate in general. And so, like you were saying, Bo, we are very much of a philosophy. Instead of saying, well, I'm going to get rid of all the media, take away all the screens and whatever, that's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Even if you say, hey, we're a TV-free house or we're a screen-free house, they can see it when they're at school. They can see it when they're out anywhere. It's not something that you're truly going to be able to eradicate from their lives. And so we take the philosophy of, instead of going this full-blown campaign to just get rid of all media and get rid of all the screens, we say, how about we present alternative content that not only is good for a child, but teaches the truth of Christ. And that's really where we come from today with this episode, is using media, how we can use all elements of media to reach kids.
I got to put this in there. I was creating some content the other day. I was writing some things, and this thought came to my mind. Now, you have it's crazy to think about this, but if you take a child or even a teenager, think of this phenomenal fact here. They have never known the world without Wi-Fi. They've never known the world without cell phones. You know, to us, you know, and to those that are even a little bit older, you know, we remember the days of the no cell phones, or if you had one, oh wow, you have a cell phone, or you know, oh, you got Netflix, so cool. But now these are part of the kids' genetic identity. This is they can't imagine going to the mall without a cell phone. They can't imagine not having an iPad. So if you say, well, we're just not going to use these things and get rid of it, they kind of go, how can we do that? But you know, to them, it's just a foreign concept. So I think you have to take the approach of, these things are part of who they are, so how can I use them to reach them? Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, like you're saying, I remember the days when having a cool cell phone meant that you had, like, the latest flip phone.
The Razor.
The Razor.
Remember the Razor?
Yes, the Razor. Wow, there's some nostalgia there, yeah. Or the, what was the one? It was the one from T-Mobile. It was like, I remember it, like, flipped, like the keyboard flipped out this way.
QWERTY keyboard.
Yeah, you had the QWERTY keyboard. The Sidekick.
Shout
That's
out
what it was
to
called.
Stephen Griffiths, if you're listening. The first time I saw a Razor was his.
Oh,
so,
okay.
True story.
I remember that Razor was like $300 when it came out. It was, but see, that's crazy how far we've come. I mean, literally the functionality of the cell phone back then was limited to calls and text. And now what phones alone can do is what a computer could was beyond the capabilities of computer even 10 years ago.
We're not going to get into this too deeply today, but think about this as well. 12 and 13-year-olds are carrying around computers in their pockets. They are carrying the world's information in their pockets. We didn't do that as kids. We didn't, but now they do. And it's a tool, once again, but we need to use that for the good.
And this has affected all areas beyond the church. In fact, I remember hearing a great educational seminar once. Back in my early days, I used to actually be a teacher. And so I was at an educational seminar, and the guy made a great point. He said, it's very hard to teach kids nowadays because there's nothing they can learn. Or there's not that there's nothing they can learn, but there's nothing that they don't know that they can't just learn about. And that's so true. I mean, it's great to know historical facts and scientific facts, and it's good to have that knowledge. But if I don't know it, I can learn it just really in an instant. And so, like, for example, I don't know how many times, it probably happens multiple times a day, that I'm curious about something, and I pull my phone out and I Google it, you know, or I have a thought and say, hey, I wonder if that's true, or I wonder about the stat. And so this advancement of technology and media has really just revolutionized, like you said, every part of life, and even the way that we raise kids. Once again, I keep saying this because I don't want you to think that we want to create, mindless, brainwash kids to constantly just watch media, watch TV. No. We think a kid should go outside and play. Okay, we do. But for the times that those kids are going to be, or anybody, kids can apply to adults too. For the times that you are going to be consuming media, consume media that is helpful, that is going to strengthen your relationship with Christ, your relationship with each other, and that's going to be positive and uplifting. And really, that's kind of the whole mindset and philosophy behind what we're talking about today, because we believe, whether it comes to a church, family, kids, that we need to be harnessing the power of media to ultimately reach people for Christ, and in this case, reach the next generation for kids. So this is going to be a 2-part episode. We have enough content here. We could probably talk about this.
We could
just dedicate a whole podcast to talking about kids media. But we're going to have 2 parts here where we're talking about this kids media and kind of moving through some talking points here. And so, stay tuned for the end of the episode. Of this episode, we're going to announce a new free resource having to do with kids and media. And so you're going to want to learn about that. And so here's something to realize. Children are marketed to just as much as adults. If not more.
If not more.
Just as much as, think about something as simple as this. When you go to, let's be honest, we all still go to McDonald's sometimes. All right, we may be adults
once in a while,
but every once in a day or so. And so when you go to the drive-thru or any fast food restaurant, you see the menu. there's always this huge section of that menu dedicated to like the kids meal or the Happy Meal. And, hey, here's the toy, here's the, here's the chicken nuggets and the food you can get. That's just a small example, and we could really look at any application.
And this is what's funny. The kids, the kids in the car, they don't have the power to buy anything.
Nope.
But they have the power to influence their parents to buy stuff, and that can go for any product, really.
Yep. My like I said, my little girl she's almost 2 years old. She's not even 2. We drive by McDonald's. She loves French fries, and she loves chicken nuggets. When we drive by McDonald's, she says, French fries, chicken nuggets. We drive by it, and she says that. There's brand recognition. We drive by Chick-fil-A. She goes, chicken. We drive by another McDonald's that has a play place. She goes, play place. She's already associated these. We drive by a Dunkin' Donuts. She goes, coffee. She has already associated these brands with what the products that they offer. And so kids, first of all, credit to kids. They're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They perceive things a lot even earlier on in life than we might even realize. But they are being marketed to just as much as adults. And that's a scary thing.
It is.
But it goes to show us this. Once again, we're not here just to say, here's all the doom and gloom and all this bad things that media is doing to kids. No, we can use that in this case, our churches.
Right. Well, look at it from this point. Kids not only understand branding, they understand good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They can pick it up. A kid can just look at something, and even things as simple as colors and things. I like that one.
Yep.
Well, why? Because of the way someone designed it. Mm-hmm. And so, if you take that approach, think of all the things that a kid sees in the store, or at these fast food restaurants,
mm-hmm.
and then their brain has already been programmed to say, hey, that looks really good. And there's a whole science that goes into that thing. Obviously we can get into that, but we're not going to. But taking it from that to church media, if you have your church media that's subpar, not that great, even a child can go,
yep,
that doesn't look very good.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already having in their mind, things out here are better. Why do things not look so good in here? Yep. And it's, once again, we can get into this really deep, but we're not going to go that far. But it's just to get you thinking. Kids know. They really, really do.
Yep. So that's why when it comes to your marketing and promotion of your church, we encourage you to establish a separate, unique visual entity for your kids ministry. Because, the logo, for example, of your church is going to be recognizable by a kid, but they're not going to resonate with that. So it's always good to get an entire, more or less branding guide developed for your kids ministry specifically, with logos and visual elements that are more kid friendly. They're more colorful. They just look more kiddish.
Yeah, it's something that they identify with. It's like, hey, I have, whether it's on a T-shirt or on a handout they get, hey, this is my class, this is my outing, or or my just kids ministry, whatever it is. They will appreciate that, and it means a lot to them. It
mm-hmm.
really does.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like we said, is it wrong? We talk about, well, what's the ethics? Okay, is it wrong to use media to reach kids? Well, think about what's going to happen if you don't.
Yep.
The culture's using it, and what are they promoting? They're promoting, things such as, maybe music that's not pleasing to the Lord. They're promoting just television shows. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh yeah,
what a television show that's a kids try to subliminally, and sometimes not so subliminally.
It's mind blowing.
And so once again. Culture's already doing it, and so if we're not using media and branding and so forth to promote our churches and promote Christ, really we're missing out on a huge opportunity, and we're really just throwing our kids to the world almost. So, Bo, it's like you said earlier, okay, so kid has no buying power.
Nope.
All right? I mean, they might have a few bucks in their wallet if they're a little older, but by and large, they don't have money to make significant purchases, and they can't drive. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. Like, they can't get in the car and go to church themselves,
Right.
but they sure can influence their parents.
Sure.
And they sure can say, hey, Mom, Dad, I like that church. I like and a lot of that can be in part to how you are branding and marketing to those kids. And of course that goes into everything, into how you run your kids services and everything. But just, we're talking about from a media perspective. Kids love media. They love to watch TV.
Yep.
They love to watch. Think about, okay, the big craze in the past decade has been comic book superhero movies. Okay, that's really picked up here in the past decade. And of course, there's a lot of adults that get into that.
Sure.
But really, comic books and the whole concept was really started as a concept for something for kids. And so, and these kids are getting into these movies, but you watch these movies and it's like, some of that content is not really kid friendly necessarily, you know? Right. And so just saying that that kids have this great influence, because if they say, hey, Mom, I want to watch this movie, I want to watch this TV show, hey, they're going to watch it. And so kids have this great influence on their parents, and you can take that and use it when it comes to church.
Let's say a kid comes home and he said, hey, I just saw this film, or, I just whatever. If somebody sees something good, they're going to tell somebody about it. But think of it this way. Let's say a kid comes home from visiting a church or visiting a youth group or something like that, and they say, hey, their look was really great, and they showed this video, and they, whatever. It's, to parents, it's like, oh, wow, like they're doing a really good job too. When we're always talking about God deserves to be excellent. Yep. He's a God of excellence. I think of Drew Shetler every time I little shout out to Drew there. Yep. So there's so many things that we don't take the initiative to look excellent on. But if we can do it with our media, in our church, in our kids programs, people are going to hear about it. Other parents, other people, and it's necessary.
Yep, and companies will spend millions and even billions of dollars to reach kids each year. And granted, there's probably not a church out there that has billions of dollars to invest into some type of kids ministry. But if that's what these companies are doing to promote something like, and I'm not even talking about bad stuff, okay? We can talk about the harms of media, and like we said, the messaging that the culture's trying to promote or whatever. But, if Coca-Cola is going to spend all these billions of dollars to advertise to kids just to sell a drink, or McDonald's is going to do it just to sell a burger,
they're creating a lifelong customer. Is what they're doing. It's exactly what they're doing.
You get, and I joked about McDonald's earlier in the podcast here, talking about how, hey, we still go every once in a while. I remember as a kid, McDonald's had that appeal to me. It was like, hey, the thought of a Happy Meal was awesome. I remember my grandpa would take me to get me Happy Meals, and it was a good memory that we made together. And really, there's something to this day to where it's like, maybe I'm not speaking for all adults, but I don't hate McDonald's.
I gotta get some chicken nuggets with some sweet and sour sauce once. So I do.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Yeah, and you think about it, it's like when you eat McDonald's, it's like, is this really even that great? No, but McDonald's has done an excellent job of marketing from a young age. And I think a lot of the reason that we still go is because we remember as kids that experience.
Personal story. I used to be a huge Mountain Dew fan. I mean, I drank so much Mountain Dew. But this is the funny thing. Nowadays, I don't like it. But this is the funny part, though. The only way I will drink it is if I am with my brothers and my dad. Because I associate, we always drank Mountain Dew together. Hey, here's a cold case of Mountain Dew, we on Memorial Day or whatever. I associate that.
Yep.
So if I'm by myself, I never drink Mountain Dew.
Yep.
But when I'm with them, I do, and I like it because it's the memories of the mountain. It's so weird.
It's amazing how adults revert to their childhood memories and they take action based on those. And the same thing can be true about your church. So if you as a kid or your children can have an excellent experience in church, how much more likely is that they stay in church? Because the sad truth is that we are seeing, kids, and not just kids, we're seeing adults. Kids, when they become adults, stop going to church. You hear about the nuns is the big kind of craze now. These are the people who say they have no religion. They don't claim to necessarily be an atheist or whatever. They just say no religion, whatever. And we could talk about these different, and a lot of those, though, they came. The reason that they say, well, they aren't outright atheists and that they say we don't believe in God. They are saying, no, we just don't claim religion. That's because a lot of them, they grew up in church, but they just didn't have a great experience for whatever reason. And maybe they didn't have a bad experience, but they didn't have a good experience. And this is why it's important that we reach kids with the power of media. And so we don't like presenting problems without solutions here at Must Increase. We don't like to be the kind of person to say, hey, here's everything that's bad, and there's nothing good that can come of it, okay? Because like we said, we believe you can harness the power of media to reach the next generation and reach kids. And so that's why we've got a new resource that we have really spent years developing. A little tidbit about us, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the next episode in part 2. But I personally have been writing, directing, and producing kids' stories and films for 10 years now. Since I was like in high school and college. It's something that I've been doing. And we'll go into the story of kind of how it came about in the next episode. But over the years, we've kind of made these films for kids at our church's Vacation Bible School. A lot of Vacation Bible Schools do like a skit, like a live skit. And we started taking the approach, like I said, about 10 years ago. We're saying, well, let's try the skits on video. And kids love it.
The kids love it.
Man. They connect with it. We look forward to this so much. Probably the number one thing that we love doing.
This is going to sound super cheesy. We get giddy about this stuff. It's just
really
like, oh, yes, it's coming.
We've actually spent a lot of time at the time of recording this. Like we spent the past few days writing the script for our latest film. Storyboarding and all this stuff. And so we love this stuff. But saying all that to say that we have, over the past couple years, produced a couple of films specifically that, you could be nitpicky. You could pick them up. A critic could tear them apart in terms of quality and whatever. Have you ever heard of a low-budget film? We call these no-budget films. We literally, we use what we have to make something, but the kids still love it. And what's good about them is that it's got these films, like I said, if you want to pick them apart quality-wise, whatever, but they do have a good message. Yep. And it is good, uplifting content that teaches the truth of Christ and morality in general. And so the past two, we've made two, one in 2017, one in 2018, and we're working on one here for 2019. We are going to make all three of those available completely free for you to watch, completely free. And here's why we're doing this. We want you to realize that your church can harness the power of media, and in this case video specifically, to reach kids. And we're hoping that these videos not only provide good content, that solid content that kids can relate to and kids can watch and learn truth from, but we hope that it inspires you and that it motivates you to say, hey, we're going to try to do something with our church to use media and do more for reaching the next generation using media. So, and another thing, like I said, this is very applicable to even parents and anyone who's involved in raising a child at all. So if you're a church leader, head over to mustincrease.com/kids and you can watch the two we have out right now, 2017, 2018. We have the films from it's called Drive and Impossible. 2017 was Drive, 2018 was Impossible, and then Take Flight is the one we're working on right now, and it will be available sometime this month at release time, sometime in June. We'll have that available for you to watch. Once again, you can watch these completely free. So we want you to do two things. We want you to head over there. We want you to watch, but then we want you to share it. We want you to, maybe you send out that link, mustincrease.com/kids. You send it out to the parents in your church, or you share it on social media, and you say, hey, here's some good stuff. Here's some good content for your kids to watch. A good, positive alternative to maybe the negative content out there. So once again, mustincrease.com/kids. You can watch these two films right now and the third film later completely free of charge at mustincrease.com/kids. Well, it has been a great episode here, and we're excited to get into part 2 next time, where we talk a little bit more about this subject. As you can tell, we really love talking about this stuff. Once again, if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Also, we'd love it if you rated and reviewed on the iTunes Store or wherever you're listening. That really helps us. You can also send us your feedback directly by emailing us at podcast@mustincrease.com. And of course, be sure to share the podcast. We make this for church leaders to help them with their media, marketing, and outreach. So be sure to share that for social media or just by sending a text or an email to somebody, letting them know. Well, Bo, as always, it has been great to have you with us here on the podcast.
Absolutely. Been a good, fun episode.
Yep. And looking forward to next time as we continue part 2, talking about how we can reach kids with media right here on the Must Increase podcast, where our mission is to increase His name through your church.